Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Tyler, and this is Zach. It's been a wild week. We're in the thick of the playoffs, and we still have so much to go. We're going to discuss today a little bit of ref call of the weeks. We're going to talk about some coaches, some fired, some hired, including some breaking news per this hour that we're recording. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the football that has left to be played.
Yeah, there's so much to cover, and a lot of it happened in the hours leading up to this recording. So we're excited to get some really current news for you guys. But before we can bring you guys current news, there's some things that we have to talk about. Okay, there are some calls that we witnessed over the weekend that are extremely controversial. The first one, arguably the less controversial one, we'll get to the one that everyone's talking about, specifically Bills fans are talking about in a moment, but we will cover this reception from Davante Adams first. Tyler, break down the situation here for us.
Yeah, so it's overtime. It's not third or fourth down by any means, which is why it's less controversial. But it is overtime. The Rams secure a pass to Davante Adams, but the controversy is, did he secure the ball in bounds? We see him juggle the ball. We see him maybe regain some control, but the question really that it comes down to is, did he regain control before that left foot came off? Because if he does not have possession before that left foot leaves the ground, then his knee is out of bounds, and therefore the ball would be incomplete.
Right.
So, Zach, you want to go ahead and tell me your thoughts on this? Do you, right off the bat, agree with what happened?
Yeah, I think that this is
the booth did review this, by the way.
Right. This was reviewed and confirmed as a catch. I do think that the results could have been slightly different had they called it incomplete on the field, but I think there's plenty of evidence. This being my evidence here, ball was secured, 2 hands on it, 2 feet down. It actually drags a little bit more after that, but the ball doesn't move after this. It is completely in his hands. I think that's the best angle. This angle doesn't give us too much, but you can see the ball does not move after this point. So this is also a decent angle. Ball stays put here. 2 feet are down. This is a reception.
And this is where I disagree. I think he bobbled it, and I do not believe he regained the possession until after his foot has left the ground. Go back to, this angle is what I want to see.
This is the best one.
So we see him bobble.
Right. Currently, I think this is bobbling, right?
Yeah, this is bobbling.
As soon as it hits his chest, I think he has possession.
But let's say this. You can't see his left foot right here.
That's why the other angles exist, right?
Okay,
you can see the left.
Yes. But we can't see the left foot. And so here, we see the bobble. We see it's not yet tucked. To me, it's not yet tucked. Now it's tucked.
And to me, both feet are still down. To me, both feet were down. And also, I think maybe we could agree on this. I think that the right foot comes up before the left foot. Right now, they're both down, but the right foot comes up, then the left foot comes up. So if we go back to the angle that's important, we have to look at right when the right foot comes up. We can assume that the left foot is coming up as well. That's possession. But by the time the feet left the ground.
I understand. Can we see the front angle? Do you have that? Do you have access to that front angle?
Yes.
Here we go. So here, it's not yet there. Still not there.
Right.
And I still hold on. So so let this play out a little bit. I think it's secured maybe now, in which case when at the point where I said now, his foot is off the ground.
Sure, but I think you're getting secure a little late. The ball's at a weird angle, but it stops moving once it hits his chest. As soon as it hits the chest, it's secured. Davante Adams does a great job of rolling on his back, and at this point, watch for the ball moving after this. It doesn't, truly. Just check this angle out.
But I think his foot's already off the ground.
But
on that last angle, his foot's already off the ground.
So let's check right at the moment when the ball hits the chest. At the moment the ball hits the chest, which is right here. Both feet are down.
I don't give that possession just yet. Give it another still image. Maybe now.
Both feet are still down.
Maybe now. I don't think they're
because
down.
we established that the right foot comes up second. So if the right foot's down, the left foot's still down. Ball's in the chest. This is a catch, and there's no evidence to overturn it. Because you're right, you can't see the foot from this angle.
I do agree with that. There's no evidence to overturn this.
So you would agree then this is a catch. The refs can't make a call based on speculation. Well, so this is a catch.
So if I am, there are times where there's not evidence because you have to have substantial, clearly wrong evidence to overturn it.
Sure.
I don't think we have that, and we wouldn't have this even if they had ruled it incomplete. But I think that there are moments where you're just like, yeah, there's not the evidence to overturn it, but that's wrong. This is one of those for me. Now, that being said, I don't believe this affected the game. I think this was first down, maybe second down. I think the Rams still go on to get a first down and then kick a field goal to win the game. But I did want to discuss this because you and I disagree on it, and we were live texting about it. And I knew that breaking it down would be some good content.
Right, exactly. And the what is a catch? Sure. And the what is a catch is it's been a recurring theme for the refs. There's been some really curious calls. Maybe the one that is most curious is this one. I've seen so much debate on this one, even more so than the Isaiah Likely one. And I think it's because it was an overtime of a playoff game in which Josh Allen lost. And we all know, as NFL fans, we know that when Josh Allen loses, the refs get scrutinized the most. Just how it works.
They do. But at the same time, though, this is also a game-defining moment because if he secures this catch, they're at the 25-yard line. The next play might be a game-winning field goal.
True.
So it's certainly going to be at the heat of the controversy.
Absolutely.
I broke down the last one. I'll let you break this one down.
Right. So obviously, overtime. This is the second possession, I believe, right, of overtime, or is it the first? Yes,
because Denver started with it. This is the Bills' first possession. Well, only possession, but yeah.
So I think the key to this, I'll just let it play through once first, and then I'll start breaking it down. But ball bouncing around a little bit, secured, but then ripped away, all very fast. I saw some people on Twitter trying to make an argument about this play with screenshots. I just don't think that that's the way this play is able to be broken down. And I will start with this angle. The ball begins by bouncing off the face mask of Brandon Cooks. See, it bounces. And now it's in his hands, but check out where this hand is. It's in between. So this left hand of McMillan is going to get a chance to break this up. And surviving the ground is huge for making the catch. I don't think that you can call that surviving the ground because essentially as soon as his shoulder hits the ground, this ball's kind of resting on his chest here and just ripped away by McMillan. It's just resting there. He doesn't have possession. And so I think that this should have stood as an interception. It did upon review, right?
See, and this is where the controversy comes. There was no review.
Even though it's a turnover, I thought the review was automatic.
There was no review. A review's not automatic. It kind of has to be like looked at. And so what happened was the crew was like, yeah, I don't see anything wrong there. And so Buffalo, Sean McDermott called a timeout to give the booth a little bit more time to glance at it before you could snap a ball. Because once the ball's snapped, it's done. It's finalized. So he called a timeout. It never went to review.
Interesting.
And that was one of the things that Sean McDermott said in his postgame interview is he goes, if you're going to rule it that way, if you're all right, whatever, but at least review it. Don't you think you want to take a look at it and get it right? And that's one of the things Sean McDermott was upset about beyond just the call.
Yeah, so I remember him saying he stands for Buffalo, right? Or something like that.
Yes.
Like he's going to defend Buffalo here.
Mm-hmm.
But
so you think the call should have stood?
I agree. I just don't think that this is enough for possession. I mean, we've gone over what the requirements of a catch are this season. They are 2 feet in bounds, football move, survive the ground. Where's the football move that is necessary for completion of a catch? We don't even have to talk about surviving the ground yet because the football move is required. It doesn't happen here. You can't point to a move here that Cooks does that's football.
But what we have not yet discussed on this podcast this year is down by contact. So right here where you currently have it, yes, he's going to lose possession in just a moment. Go ahead and play just another snippet. So he does lose possession for a moment, but when he grabs it, when his shoulder hits the ground, he has possession, in my opinion, and there's clearly contact. This is down by contact.
Okay,
I don't want to say the refs screwed the Bills because the Bills certainly had their own opportunities, but this individual play is incorrect, in my opinion.
I disagree with that, and here's why. Let's remove McMillan entirely. Take 29 away. If Brandon Cook's shoulder lands and the ground jars the ball free, that's incomplete, right? He didn't survive the ground.
Well, if the ground,
that would be incomplete. He's not down.
If the ground jars the ball incomplete, then that would be the ball.
I didn't say the ground jarred it complete. I said his shoulder hitting the ground jarred the ball out of his grip. Because obviously, if it hit the ground, then it's incomplete. But if his shoulder hitting the ground knocks the ball loose, he's still not surviving the ground. So he wouldn't have completed the process of the catch if his shoulder hitting the ground knocked the ball free. That's essentially what happened here. His shoulder hits the ground, and the ball is immediately jarred free, and McMillan just scoops it off his chest. That's what happened here.
Here's why that's different, though. Here's why it's different in those two scenarios. Let's say, yes, McMillan doesn't exist. Everything else with the ball and Cooks still happens. When Cooks hit the ground, if McMillan doesn't exist, the play's not over, in which case you would then have to, yes, survive the ground. But if he's got possession of the ball and he's being touched, he's down, the play is done. It does not matter what happens to the ball after that. It's kind of like if you stretch the ball out and it crosses the goal line with possession and then you lose it, doesn't matter. Ball broke the plane, you got possession, play is over.
That's not true. That's exactly what happened to Isaiah Likely this year. He caught it, got 2 feet in, stuck the ball across the goal line, and they still ruled that an incompletion. Because you have to complete the process of a catch. The NFL is very strict about this. Brandon Cooks did not complete the process of the catch. You just admitted that if the ball had been jarred loose by him hitting the ground, not necessarily the ball jarring it loose, that it still wouldn't have been a catch. And that's what happened here. Over. But the play was over.
The play wouldn't have been over yet.
I don't see how that's relevant.
By contact, the play continued because him being touched, he's now down by contact. He is touched with the ball firmly in his chest. And because he's touched, he is now down by contact. The play is over.
The ball was firmly in his chest. So let's take this example then. The ball was firmly in his chest, shoulder hits the ground, and it pops out. That is an incompletion per NFL rules.
Sure.
So he never had possession.
The play wasn't over because the play didn't stop though. The play hadn't been over yet.
What do you mean the play? That's happened numerous times where the ball bounces out. There's no stipulation in the rules where if the play is over, you can stop any action and declare this a catch mid ripping it out. That's not in the rule.
When the play is over though, it's the play is over, right? It's like if a receiver catches the ball. Now, I realize that this is a scenario where the refs screwed over the Lions, but if a receiver catches the ball in the end zone and he's got possession, he scored a touchdown and then he drops it to go celebrate. That's a touchdown. I'm well aware that Calvin Johnson was ruled incomplete on a particular play of this, but it was wrong. It's one of the most notorious calls in the NFL history. But when the play is over, it does not matter what happens to the ball.
Right. And the play is over when the player establishes possession. Either way, the player has to establish possession.
Down by contact.
In order to be down by contact, you have to establish possession, correct?
And he did. He established possession. He was down and then lost it. He lost it after he was down is what I'm saying.
Okay. So you're arguing that he had established possession. I'm arguing that he didn't. Because we've seen plays like Isaiah Likely's where you can put 2 feet in bounds, you can make a football move, and they'll still rule it incomplete if they deem it not. If there's that little subjective clause at the end that they just don't think it's a catch.
Here's a good epitome of the NFL in the officiating, though, and this is mainly to the refs rigged it for the Chiefs crowd. The Chiefs are not in the playoffs this year, and yet there's still controversial calls. The refs never rigged the games. The refs never favored the Chiefs. The refs might have made some stupid mistakes, but because it benefited the Chiefs, it had to have been rigged. Kind of same thing here.
So
The refs make mistakes.
my biggest
And I think
problem
they made a mistake this time.
my biggest problem with this is the fact that it's the same exact thing as the last play we just ruled. The ball is a little bit loose in the arms of Devontae Adams. You go, he doesn't have possession with 2 feet inbound, so it's not a catch. The ball is still loose in the arms. McMillan's arm doesn't leave the middle here, and it's constantly tugging on this arm. It's affecting the ball. The ball is essentially resting on his chest at this point, because if it was secure, it wouldn't have just been so easily ripped out like this. The ball is just ripped out. So he never secured it. It's the same argument.
It is ripped out later, but I think he had it down by contact. My order is this, and this is where we disagree. My order is catch, down by contact, play over, ball's ripped out. Your argument is catch, ball ripped out, then play over, essentially. Because and the reason for the play being over or not being over is due to different reasons, of course.
I mean, maybe, but I'm arguing he never really caught this ball. It bounced off his helmet first, and then it's loosely in the hands.
Yes, right here he doesn't have it.
And you can make the argument that potentially he has it here, but in order for it to be a catch, he still must complete the process of a catch. And so if you argue here, he's got to get 2 feet down, make a football move, and then it's considered a catch. 2 feet down, no football move, no catch. That's the ruling every time.
Well, it doesn't
because
have
at this point
it can also be a knee or a shoulder,
a knee,
and in this case it would be his knee and shoulder.
But honestly, the 2 feet come. Honestly, the 2 feet.
He's got
the 2 feet come down first, so it's 2 feet, then knee.
Either I think here. Pause it right when his shoulder hits the ground.
When his shoulder hits the ground.
Yeah, I think at this point he has possession.
And you see, I don't, because I just don't see where you can make the argument that he has possession here. We don't really have the best angle, honestly. Maybe this is our best one. But look at where this hand is. It's not on the ball. It's not gripping anything. You can see blue through here. You can see more of the arm of McMillan corralling this ball, which is why it's so easily ripped out, essentially. This hand doesn't have it. And so that would mean he would have had to establish possession with the other arm, which he clearly doesn't, because it's so easily ripped out. McMillan has more right for the ball right here, which is, you said, is the key moment with the shoulder coming down, than Cooks does. And so when the ball's ripped out, it's because Cooks didn't have possession. That's my argument.
I think he had it for a split second, but I think that split second was while he was on the ground touched. And that's my argument.
And you see, a split second isn't long enough to make the argument that a catch has been made in the NFL. There has to be some sort of football move or more time. And neither of those happened here. The process of the catch wasn't completed.
I understand each side, but ultimately I do agree with Sean McDermott about about the ruling, but also that this should have been reviewed. This, at the very least, should have been reviewed. I
think it should have been reviewed. We have no knowledge if it was reviewed or not. New York could have taken a look at this, because all replays have to come from the booth, and that timeout did allow them time. Mm-hmm. There just may not have been an announcement that the call stands or something like that, or maybe there was and we just didn't see it. Possibly. But you're right. This should have been a review, and I think that it would have been upheld based on the way that the booth, because the booth is fairly consistent. Most of the time it's the refs we have a problem with, because the refs are the ones that make those subjective pass interference calls that differ crew to crew. The booth has been fairly consistent on what a catch is this year, and they're not going to give you any free catches. The Isaiah Likely one is the one I point to so frequently, because that one, clear establishment of possession, clear football move, clear 2.5 feet down, and they still ruled it incomplete. If that's not a catch, then this certainly isn't a catch.
So do you think that, all right, if it is a catch, controversy, no controversy, if it is a catch, Bills most likely win the game.
Right.
So did this cost Sean McDermott his job?
Absolutely. I mean,
What's your thoughts
obviously
on doing that?
if they move on, the story isn't Sean McDermott lost another crucial playoff game for the Bills. I think any journalist with an integrity would say Josh Allen nearly cost the Bills a chance at the championship game, because he did. That fumble at the end of half was one of the most egregious plays I've ever seen from, it was Will Levis-esque. He just threw it backwards, rolled it on the ground to nobody with 2 seconds left in the game, and the Broncos got 3 free points out of it. The difference in the game was 3 points. You can't make that play there, and that's not on the coach. But yes,
This
loss.
game told me that Josh Allen will never win a Super Bowl. We kind of saw this with the Bills versus Eagles game a little bit. Josh Allen just made a couple boneheaded mistakes, and those small little mistakes was enough to lose the game against the Eagles. And I thought this was week 17, second to last week, and I thought the lights might just be too bright for Josh Allen. And last night was an example of that as well. The lights are too bright for Josh Allen with the turnover there, with a fumble. He put the ball on the ground again, but luckily he didn't lose it. He had, I think, an interception beyond that one too. The lights are too bright for Josh Allen. Now let me ask you this, and then we'll kind of, as we go back to Sean McDermott a little bit. Let's say one way or the other, the Bills win the game. And then the Bills move on and then lose to the Patriots. Does Sean McDermott still get fired?
I don't think that you can fire a coach after making the AFC Championship. I think that that's kind of crazy. So I think that losing a game to a team that's widely regarded as inferior, Denver, is the reason. And I don't think that he deserved to be fired. I think that he is a scapegoat for an organization that so desperately wants a Super Bowl. They have to make a change, or else fall victim to like the classic definition of insanity, which is if you keep trying the same thing over and over and expecting different results, you're insane. That's this organization. They're like, we can't justify another year of the same thing. But that being said, I don't think they fire him after an AFC Championship appearance.
Okay.
I just can't see that happening.
I would tend to agree with you. I can get behind the idea of, Sean, you're either going to bring us to a Super Bowl or you're not. And if you're not, we got to make a change and find the guy who will. However, that game was not Sean's fault.
No.
There were lots of games that were Sean's fault. My prime example is the 2021 Divisional, the 13 seconds game. That was Sean's fault. Allowing your defense to play sideline prevention when the team you're preventing that has 3 timeouts is coaching malpractice.
Prevent only prevents you from winning the game.
Yeah. Last year in the AFC Championship against the Chiefs, some of it was Sean's fault, some of it was Josh's fault. The year before, losing to the Bengals, that was, I think you can get behind the idea of Sean's fault with the way it went. But this year was not, and that's why I feel so bad.
Yeah.
Because last night's game was not Sean's fault. But yeah, I get it. Sean, you're either going to coach us to a Super Bowl or you're not. And if you're not, we got to go find the guy who is.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't had a single-digit wins season since 2018. He has a 500 record in the playoffs. I mean, let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that Sean McDermott is 3 of 6 in the playoffs and hasn't won his division in 4 years. Would you fire him then? Sure, because that's not Sean McDermott. That's Matt LaFleur, who still has a job in the NFL after 7 years. He's lost twice as many games as he's won in the playoffs and still has a job, and Sean McDermott doesn't. The NFL is a cruel and unfair game, but the Bills are a team that knows they can't afford to wait around any longer with a guy like Josh Allen. And, you know, something has to change, although I think they changed the wrong piece of the puzzle. The GM who built this team should have gone, because yes, did Josh Allen make some boneheaded mistakes? Correct. but he's throwing to Brandon Cooks in the most important drive of his life. Brandon Cooks he's in his twilight years. That's on the GM for not going out and getting wide receiver talent. He made no moves at the deadline. They drafted Keon Coleman, who's been a colossal disaster at wide receiver. I mean, that's more on the GM than it is on Sean McDermott, and blame him all you want.
And they've got McCole Hardman getting consistent reps as well.
It's ridiculous that they think that you can pin anywhere close to 50% of the blame of this game on Sean McDermott. Josh Allen played terrible, and they lost. And Josh Allen played terrible because his supporting cast, aside from his tight ends and running back, are kind of stinky. And that falls directly at Brandon Beane, the GM of the Bills, who still has a job today, which is shocking to me.
I agree. And the other reason I feel so bad for Sean McDermott is because, like, the last thing he said as the head coach is, I'm standing up for Buffalo.
Jeez, so bad.
Oh, man.
It's going to be our thumbnail. Sorry, Sean, I'm going to use you for clicks. But how sad is that? Because you know that he cares about this team.
Man, yeah, and I like Sean McDermott. I think he's a good coach. I really do. But you had mentioned Matt LaFleur and the Packers. The Packers just had a coordinator hired. Did you see this?
Yeah, that's right. Within 30 minutes of us starting this recording, Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, left Matt LaFleur's staff to join the Miami Dolphins and become their next head coach. So Dolphins going from offensive genius to defensive genius, trying to switch the narrative on their team. Maybe when you play in a division versus Drake May and Josh Allen, you think that defense becomes a priority. And that's seemingly what Miami wants to do. Curious on your thoughts on the hire, just switching lanes like that. Miami needed a change, though.
They did need a change. I'm shocked that that's the direction they went, because when the Chiefs had I try not to rip everything back to the Chiefs, but when you have a division like Josh Allen's and Drake May's, who's got a dominant quarterback, when the Chiefs were going through their dynasty, the Broncos and the Raiders and the Chargers kept trying to find offensive strengths to counter the Chiefs offense and match the Chiefs offense. And so I'm surprised the Dolphins didn't go that route of, hey, you know what, we've got a quarterback who can be good when he has brain cells and the fastest human in the NFL. We've got good strengths at offense. Let's really try and match the offensive mind of these teams. And so I was kind of expecting more of a Kevin Stefanski to come into Miami. I was surprised that they went defensive-minded coach here.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because Jeff Hafley in his final season with Green Bay had a defense that was outside of the top 10 for points against. I know that that's not the end-all be-all statistic to judge defenses on, but it's not like he put up back-to-back top 10 defenses, though. Like he was 6th in 2024. They added Micah Parsons for the majority of the year. They had him for a while. I know his injury came late. Then they dropped to 11. Like I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that Jeff Hafley is the most impressive defensive coordinator even available to be hired. Robert Saleh blows me away with the Niners because he dealt with even more injuries for longer, and that Niners defense went further in the playoffs than the Green Bay Packers. So I just don't maybe it works out, but the Dolphins don't have anybody like Micah Parsons. So it's going to be tough for Hafley to run his scheme, in my opinion.
Do we know, have the Dolphins hired a GM yet?
I don't know.
Let's do some live research here.
Yeah, I don't. I think they are in the process of hiring a general manager, with the Packers VP of player personnel and the 49ers director of scouting being some top candidates.
The Dolphins have hired a general manager.
Okay.
I did find that on NFL.com as of January 9th. Okay, so we just missed that story then. The Dolphins officially hired John Eric Sullivan to be the new team's general manager. So they have at least, we can debate the names of the guys that were hired, but they're at least following the formula that you and I have been selling of hire the GM and the GM hires the head coach. So there might be something to look out for with Miami there.
Yeah,
they're
wow.
following the formula.
Well, John Eric Sullivan, Packers DC seems like they're trying to replicate the success of Green Bay. What success they're chasing, I'm not quite sure. They don't have any division titles in this decade, but whatever.
But that being said, though, if you're looking at the Packers formula of the GM and the coach does have a lot of success when they've had their quarterback. Jordan Love is not the quarterback that's bringing them the success, but Aaron Rodgers was. And obviously, the GM and coach was not who produced Aaron Rodgers. He's been here since Brett Favre. But when you've got those guys hired and a good quarterback, they do see success. I don't hate the strategy. They just got to go now hit a home run with their quarterback.
Sure.
Draft coverage is coming up.
Yeah, and we're really excited for that. And like we've said, a GM and a head coach being on the same page is one of the most important things that you can have, I feel like. Where you really run into trouble is when you have a head coach that was hired in a different cycle than the GM, and they don't really get along. They don't agree on which players should and shouldn't be on the roster. At least these guys are being hired at the same time, come from the same organization, probably have similar player building philosophies. It'll be good to have that congruency. I just don't know if building off of the success of a team that isn't all that successful is the best strategy. But speaking of building off of success, the New York Giants have brought in legendary head coach John Harbaugh, formerly of the Ravens. Now they're trying to bring him in to cultivate a winning culture around Jackson Dart. Thoughts on this one?
This is a great move. It's the New York Giants, so I just am naturally skeptical about them being able to succeed. However, if you give me John Harbaugh, Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, Malik Neighbors, and then say, hey, go draft a defense, done. John Harbaugh's Super Bowl was with not an elite quarterback, but a quarterback that can get the job done and an elite defense. You've got the quarterback that, in my opinion, an offense that can get the job done. So if you say, hey, Harbaugh, go get that 2012 Ravens defense again, do whatever it takes to go draft a good defense and sign a good defense this offseason, done. Giants become scary. I love the move of the Giants.
They also have the number 5 pick in the draft. They also already have an excellent defense with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, who was a top 3 pick last year. Like, come on. There's so much potential there. And even Kayvon Thibodeau, another great edge rusher that's going to be a contributor on that defense. And we talked about in a very recent episode how difficult it is to find a head coach that's going to be able to put up with the tough market that is New York. You can point to any number of the guys in this coaching cycle that are available. None of them sniff Harbaugh for his ability to battle through tough markets. I mean, Baltimore's tough. He's also a culture builder. That's exactly what the Giants need right now. This is a slam dunk hire. They won the sweepstakes. They're going to be scary next year.
I don't know if it's necessarily they won the sweepstakes. I think it's they had the money to afford what they wanted. Harbaugh's agent, I can't remember the exact deals, but Harbaugh's agent had some pretty stiff stipulations on the number and percentage or whatever it was. So the Giants, being a very high market, had the money to do it. A team like the Dolphins probably didn't have the ability to do it.
I'm sure they do. Money shouldn't be an object in signing coaches, especially ones that are proven like Harbaugh. It's really just having an owner that's willing to have the courage to go out, because for the longest time, and like you said, I hate to bring everything back to Detroit, but for the longest time, the Lions didn't have the courage to bring in good hires because their owner's stingy. And then William Clay Ford passed away. Sheila Ford Hamp takes over, and the Hamp era has been more successful than any Lions era since the 1950s, right? So it's less about actually having the money and more about having the courage to spend that money, right?
That's fair.
But I agree. I agree with the general philosophy that you just brought up.
Yeah, and having courage to do what needs to be done is very important in the NFL, and I think the Chiefs have just done that, by the way. Did you see the news? Some more breaking news, the Chiefs have officially brought back Eric Bieniemy, the Bears running back coach, as their new offensive coordinator, and I am so excited.
I'll let you take this one because you've been thrilled about the potential of this move happening, so I would hate to take that away from you.
The players love Eric Bieniemy. They know Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy will harp on the guys when they need to be harped on. They were disciplined. They were organized. It's a dream offensive coordinator. Steve Spagnuolo is a dream defensive coordinator because he's so chaotic, but it's amazing. Eric Bieniemy is a dream offensive coordinator because he's going to hold guys accountable, something Matt Nagy never did. We also, and I don't know if you heard this one either, just brought in a new wide receivers coach. As of this hour too, the Chiefs have hired Chad O'Shea as their wide receiver coach. Not expecting anyone to really know who Chad O'Shea is, so I'll just give you his qualifications. He was previously the Browns wide receivers coach, but he was the New England Patriots wide receiver coach during their second stint of a dynasty, having 3 Super Bowls with Patriot wide receivers as an assistant. So this is a guy that, if my timeline's correct, this is a guy that turned Julian Edelman from who is this short white guy to Julian Edelman. Is he a Hall of Famer? No, but there was the question of is he is. That's who we just brought in at wide receiver, and I cannot wait to pair him with EB. The Chiefs dynasty is back.
Eric Bieniemy is a slam dunk hire, and simultaneously with Eric Bieniemy's hiring, you can also officially announce the departure of Matt Nagy, who has been a disaster. That's probably the most important thing, is because obviously there was no firing. His contract was just expired, but now it is official. The Chiefs will not be bringing back Matt Nagy. Not ruling out that they'll bring him back in any capacity. I don't think they will. I think he's a hire somewhere else. But what Eric Bieniemy exactly, and what Eric Bieniemy has done, and this is an angle that maybe some Chiefs fans won't consider because I'm going to give you some unique NFC North perspective. What Eric Bieniemy has done with the running backs in Chicago, that being DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, has been pretty impressive. They've both had very impressive seasons. Kyle Monangai being a late-round rookie and DeAndre Swift being kind of a cast-off running back initially drafted by the Lions, who's jumped around teams and hasn't had a ton of success. But both of them were wildly productive. And guess what position group I think is the biggest weakness of the Chiefs? It's running back, and it's not close, because not only were the running backs awful last year, but they're not even under contract anymore. Hunt and Pacheco are both gone and have not been re-signed. So you get a guy like Eric Bieniemy who transformed the running back room of Chicago, made them a running powerhouse with the opportunity to work with Brett Veach and Andy Reid to bring in talent to bolster that running back room. The beneficiaries of this is whoever the Chiefs bring at starting running back, and Brashard Smith, who's that rookie who I think was really impressive in limited looks. He's going to do so much good for this Chiefs offense, which was sputtering for the last 3 years. But speaking of sputtering, the Lions also made some impressive moves at their coordinator positions. John Morton was fired unceremoniously after one season of leading a top 5 point scoring offense, but a bottom half in efficiency offense. And so the Lions have just brought in Drew Petzing, the 3-year OC of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Tyler, I know that you kind of root for Arizona. So did you know anything about this guy before the Lions brought him in?
Not a whole lot, and I would need to do more research because off the bat, I would not like this hire. The Cardinals' offense has not been very good the last few years. You can blame the head coach, but Kyler Murray consistently, year after year, falls off a cliff halfway through the season. I would be very concerned, without knowing a whole lot of details, I would be concerned about this hire.
And so initially I was a little bit skeptical. I wasn't even like optimistic. I was just like, ugh. So here, do you want to give me, I'm going to give you his coaching history, and then I'm going to give you the reasons why Dan Campbell brought him in. So it starts back in Boston College, where he worked with Ben Johnson on the same staff. Then he joined the Minnesota Vikings under Mike Zimmer, where he worked with the Lions offensive lineman coach Hank Fraley. Then he was then promoted to assistant wide receivers coach and then full wide receivers coach. Then he moved to the Browns to be their tight ends coach. Then he moved to Cleveland, to Cleveland to be their tight ends coach. Then he was Cleveland's quarterback coach. Then he was the OC for 3 years, calling plays all 3 years. So the reason that Dan brought him in is not to make drastic changes to the Lions offense, because I don't think that they want to steal Drew Petzing's scheme. They're bringing him in for his diversity in coaching ability. He's coached every offensive position. He has called plays for 3 years, something that's been a huge problem for the Dan Campbell Lions is play calling since losing Ben Johnson. They switched play callers midway through the season. So they want somebody who can speak to every position and call plays and take on the scheme that's already working, just make some tweaks. And the tweaks he's going to make are running game tweaks because he is a run first, 13 personnel, ground and pound coach. And that's what the Lions struggled to do this year. So if he can bring a ground and pound running approach to this already good Lions offense that has a great scheme that runs through Jared Goff already, if he can just add a wrinkle here or there, work with Dan Campbell, who we've established is a good offensive mind, good enough to call plays in the NFL, I think it's a good synergy hire just to make sure the Lions offense gets back to what they were. The next step is obviously making the O-line good enough to run that scheme. But I don't think that they're expecting Drew Petzing to be the savior of all saviors. They're expecting him to bring a new perspective, bring diverse coaching ability, and he's also 38. So young, innovative, offensive ideas to the Lions. That's my rationale.
I think that's a good fit then. Yeah, if you're not looking for a whole lot of changes, you're not looking for the scheme. Like, hey, we've got the scheme. We just need you to be able to coach up these multiple positions and make them fit the scheme. I think that works. And when you've mentioned the Browns tight end, the Browns tight end coach, Browns have had a lot of struggles on offense. Tight end hasn't really been one of them. They've actually
David
had some pretty
Njoku.
good, consistent. Yeah, they've had some good, consistent tight ends. That's been solid.
And during his play calling, guess who benefited the most from his play calling in Arizona? Trey McBride.
Yeah.
Trey McBride has been the best tight end in fantasy football and just production-wise the last 2 years. So
Trey
Sam
McBride
Laporta
won multiple fantasy championships this year.
Absolutely. So Sam Laporta to the moon. He's going to utilize the tight ends that Detroit have in a way that I think is going to be super beneficial because we know that Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams are dangerous. They're the only wide receiver duo to finish top 10 in yards together in the NFL this season. So make your arguments for CD and George Pickens. They couldn't do that. J-Mo and St. Brown did. If you can keep those guys at this level and elevate Sam Laporta up there when he gets healthy again, this could be a scary offense. Once again, I don't think that the offensive coordinator was necessarily the issue. I think that John Morton deserved to be fired, but I think it's the offensive line. So if Brad Holmes can address the offensive line, I think that they could plug in a lot of different characters in this offense because the offensive coordinator is going to kind of have an Eric Bieniemy, Matt Nagy style input in the offense, which is not as much as everyone thinks. It's Dan Campbell's scheme.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and everyone's kind of know that that's absolutely Campbell's scheme. So yeah, I honestly, you've kind of convinced me. The coaching resume and the potential utilization of him, I would be a lot more convinced that this would be a good hire. Right. But one of the coaches that are still not yet hired is the old Steelers coach, who I'm still wanting to land in Arizona.
I think it would be such a tremendous move.
Happening. That's just me wanting it to happen.
It would be such a tremendous move, and you and I both support that unilaterally. It's one of the only things that you and I agree on. Like, so honestly. But yeah, like I said, in kind of how you were at the beginning of this conversation, there are a lot of Lions fans that are literally at the foot of this cliff, ready to jump, because this name wasn't Mike McDaniel and it wasn't Kafka. Right? Two of the best names out there for offenses. I don't think that we have to freak out just yet. I think that we need to look at this objectively and understand why this hire was made and not be sad that it wasn't someone else that we wanted. But that's all we have with new hires. We've talked about Hafley, Harbaugh, and the new coordinators. You had some interesting similarities that this playoff season has to one in the past.
Yeah, despite all the coaching changes, there's still football to be played. And I was just kind of looking like, oh, LOL, this could be a rematch of some possible Super Bowls from them. And then I started looking at specifically the 2013-2014 season. And there are striking similarities between those two seasons and between that season and this year. Now, I want to preface that I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in an NFL script. But just noticing these are quite interesting. If you don't mind me sharing what I've got.
Go for it.
So right off the bat, the conference championship is made up of the number 1 seed Broncos versus the number 2 seed Patriots, along with the number 1 seed Seahawks and another NFC West team. That's that makes up the 5 seed. 2013-14 season and this year, that's the similarity. In addition, in both seasons, in the divisional round, the number 1 seed Broncos beat the number 6 seed, and that number 6 seed was ran by a great quarterback that could just never find the Super Bowl. This year, Josh Allen. That year, Phillip Rivers. I think there's a lot of comparisons between those two quarterbacks. Also in the divisional round, the number 2 seed Patriots beat the number 4 seed, who was the AFC South champion. That year it was the Colts. This year, the Texans. In the divisional round, the number 2 seed on the NFC lost to the NFC West 5 seed. Just another weirdly specific comparison. In the divisional round, the number 2 seed Seahawks beat the number 6 seed. That year it was the Saints. This year it's the Niners. Going to wild card similarities now. In the wild card, the 6 seed beat the number 3 seed Eagles. We're even getting to the Eagles being the same seed. And also, the Packers also lost in the wild card round in that. And then these last two are kind of weirdly specific. The NFC North champion lost in the wild card, while the AFC South champion moved on to lose to the divisional round to the number 2 Patriots. And then finally, the AFC West wildcard team lost. That year it was the Chiefs heartbreaker. This year it was the Chargers. So might have been pulling at straws for a couple of those, but just a lot of strikingly similar things between the 2013 season and the 2025 season. But that being said, we nonetheless have Patriots, Broncos, and Seahawks versus Niners this year. Who do you think is going to come out of conference championship weekend on top?
Sure. I think that there's so many good teams. Before we jump into our conference champions, I want to cover one more prior news story, and that's the Chicago Bears, who outperformed everybody's expectations and was an overtime period away, maybe a Caleb Williams interception away from moving on to the NFC Championship game, but unfortunately they came up short. And you and I have talked about the Bears being frauds all season long, and you seem to have changed your tune. I haven't. So I'm curious of what the Bears did to overcome their fraud status in your mind.
Yeah, so I've said that the Bears are frauds. It's going to be midnight in Chicago, but it kind of comes down to my take last week. I thought last week the Packers were their Super Bowl and they barely beat them, so they're going to get blown out in the divisional round because they've already won their Super Bowl. That's not what happened. We're super close to Chicago winning. We're a DJ Moore being lazy away from the Bears going on and playing in the NFC Championship. So to me, I'm like, they've definitely proved me wrong. That sure, they're not the best team in the NFC, but they were not frauds. They proved that they deserved to be in the divisional round playoffs with a chance at the NFC Championship. To me, they proved that they deserve to be there.
And
a lot of it was Caleb Williams.
I disagree with pretty much everything you just said. What else is new, Tyler? What else is new?
We have a podcast.
Right. What else is new? So Caleb Williams in that game threw 3 interceptions, failed on a 4th down, and you say DJ Moore got lazy. You look at the all-22, the safety was in perfect position for that play, and Caleb Williams still threw it, and that's on Caleb, unfortunately. DJ Moore was never making that play in the all-22. It's a bad read, and he was in a clean pocket. There was no need to force something like that. That's all on the quarterback. And speaking of the quarterback, had it not been for the single most miraculous throw I have ever seen in my life, no exaggeration, that throw where Caleb Williams is all the way back to the 40 and just chucks it up. First of all, there was offensive pass interference in the end zone. Absolutely 100% offensive pass interference in the end zone on Cole Kmet. That should have been called. They called the same shit on Amon-Ra St. Brown in the Steelers game. Same exact call. Was not called here. So that play shouldn't have worked twice. Then the Bears lose and score only 10 points against the Rams. That is fraud watch 100% of the time. They also shouldn't have beat the Packers anyway. They were down 18 points and LaFleur blew it. So I think that nothing that they did was like, oh yeah, they can beat teams normally. They look good. They're not lucky as hell. No, all of those things just continued to happen. It's just the magic finally ran out. So the reason I called them frauds is because they won more one-score games than anybody, and that reeks of 2024 Kansas City and like I think it's like 2022 Minnesota or maybe 2024 Minnesota. Either way, like those teams were excellent in one-score games, and they had huge drop-off regressions the next year, and that's what I'm predicting for the Bears right now. I predict they finish 3rd or 4th in the division and have a massive drop-off and miss the playoffs next season.
I hear your reasoning. Here's why you're still wrong. You had mentioned, I'll start with DJ Moore, and then I'll talk about Cole Kmet's OPI. So you mentioned the All-22. You had also mentioned quarterbacks. There is a former NFL quarterback named Chase Daniel who broke down that particular play using the All-22 angle. And so what he points out is that they're using box defensive coverage and that there is so much space in the right side of the field on that play. There's so much space for a wide receiver to come in. The problem is DJ Moore continues to go upfield toward the safety instead of coming directly into the space where he should have been. DJ Moore doing that is what kind of forced Caleb Williams to make that play to where you're right, the safety was in good position. But if DJ Moore is not way out of position, he's not forced to do that. So that's the first way on why that was DJ Moore's fault, not Caleb Williams' fault. The second thing, the second thing is that offensive pass interference and that non-offensive pass interference. And you also mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown's play, he runs straight to the defender, makes contact, pushes away, and there's a separation. What we see in that is they're both kind of hand fighting for a little bit, and this is Terry McLaurin. That's the rules analyst for Fox.
Terry McCauley. Terry McLaurin's the receiver.
You're correct. So Terry McCauley, they had kind of asked him about should this have been offensive pass interference. Terry McCauley was very quick to say no, this is not offensive pass interference. They're both hand fighting. They're both kind of looking at each other like this. And then Cole Kmet just distances himself, and the receiver and the defender does not. Well, I mean, like they're doing that, and then you just go away. You're not pushing the defender away. You're just going away. And so I disagree with an offensive pass interference call on that as well. I do understand that was probably a lucky throw. I can get behind that. I can get behind that argument. I can get behind that is a miraculous throw. And I can get behind the argument that 10 points against the Rams was not it. Okay. Oh, so you've got the video. We've got a bonus ref call.
Bonus ref call of the week, everybody.
We have a bonus ref.
They are hand fighting, and Cole Kmet gets in pushing position, extends both arms, and shoves the crap out of Kobe Durant, creates separation, makes him unable to play the ball, and then instantly that's when the ball comes. This is textbook offensive pass interference and 10 times more egregious than anything Amon-Ra St. Brown ever did this season. He is fully extended against the defender. This is, ready? No separation, complete separation. Textbook. Call it every time. Complete miracle that should have been voided anyway. It's the same situation, just the refs don't care. Thoughts on that?
The refs treat the Bears similar to the Lions. The refs always make bad calls against the Bears. So if they were going to do something like that they would have called it there. That being said, though, like I think given that both of them are kind of fighting a little bit is why the ref. Hey, you can make an argument for offensive pass interference. I understand that. But because they are both hand fighting a little bit while both looking up, I think is why the ref negated maybe a potential push off.
You can't create separation like that. It's the same thing. Got to the top of the break and then two-handed full extension shove. That's what they called Amon-Ra St. Brown for. And in fact, it's actually more egregious. So if you're going to call Amon-Ra St. Brown for that, I do think we came to that conclusion that it was probably a softer call. This would have been a soft call, but it's defensible. And they didn't call it here. It is OPI per the rule book. They just don't tend to call these. Would you say?
I can get behind that argument. I can settle for that. I wouldn't agree that Amon-Ra St. Brown's was soft. I think, to me, that was straight up offensive pass interference. But I can get behind an argument for why someone would want that play to be also called. I think I'm not really taking a side on whether. Well, I did. I said it shouldn't. But ultimately, what I'm saying is that the ref. I think the ref decided not to call the flag because there was mutual hand fighting to start, and that's why he negated. Maybe he shouldn't have negated it, but I think that's why he negated it.
Right. And we'll have to agree to disagree on this one because I see something completely different. But to answer your original question on who I think is going to the Super Bowl in championship week, I think it will be New England. Sorry, Denver. Jarrett Stidham just doesn't move me. And I think it will be the Rams, a rematch of Super Bowl, whatever that one is. You know the numbers better than me, but the 2018 Super Bowl.
Rams and Patriots would be a rematch of both Super Bowl 53 and Super Bowl 37.
There you go.
Maybe 30, maybe 38. No, 37.
Yeah, so I choose that.
53 is what you're referring to.
The third matchup between the Rams and the Patriots in the Super Bowl era, I am predicting.
I think that Seattle's going to win. I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams win. I just think being at home, I think the 12th man has such a big impact on Seattle Seahawks games that due to the home field advantage, I think Seattle will win, but I'm not really going to argue necessarily the Rams winning. And I also agree that the Patriots are going to win. I do, however, think the Patriots are going to I don't think they're going to run away with it. I think Sean Payton is going to prepare Jared Stidham very well, but ultimately, I think the Broncos are going to rely on a very heavy run game. Their defense is already very good, so that's going to be a good matchup. Just Patriots offense versus Broncos defense is going to be a good matchup. And I think if you take Jared Stidham out of the game really and make it more of a run-heavy offense, it can become interesting. But ultimately, I agree. They're not going to have enough to overcome the Patriots. Patriots will win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout like everyone's now expecting.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that the run game will become a huge element, and the New England Patriots are going to have to score against that Broncos defense. Tougher than it looks. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. If the Broncos take care of the football, they'll have a chance at the end. It's just a matter of whether they can capitalize or not.
And I feel so bad for Bo Nix, though. I hate the Broncos. I dislike the Patriots. I don't like the Bengals, but I hate the Broncos. I'm a Chiefs fan. I have to. But I wanted the Broncos to lose badly while healthy. I don't like seeing injuries. That's not how I want my rivals to lose. So I'm so upset that Bo Nix will be unavailable. He's fun to watch. He's a good player. He's a good dude. And it absolutely sucks because let's say the Broncos do lose by, say, 7. The story's going to be, we would have won if Bo Nix was there. And maybe they're right.
Yeah, it's just like the Jordan Travis situation at Florida State, right?
The right way. Say that again?
It's just like the Jordan Travis situation at Florida State. Like, undefeated. Yeah. They didn't make the playoffs because they knew the committee didn't think they had a chance. Just brutal.
Yeah, it's tough.
Tough, but not impossible. Look to Nick Foles as inspiration that you can certainly beat New England with a backup quarterback, right? So there is hope yet.
New England cannot go into this week thinking it's an easy win because otherwise they will lose.
Exactly. But with that sentiment, that's all we have for you this week. Enjoy watching Championship Weekend, and we're so excited to bring you Super Bowl coverage and off-season coverage. One more thing from Tyler.
I have one last thing because it came to my mind too. With the AFC, again, I don't like bringing about the Chiefs, but I got to talk about the Chiefs. This is the first time since 2017 that the Lamar Hunt Trophy will never be in Kansas City airspace. And I think that says a lot about the Chiefs and the way they've been. First time since 2017 that it will never be in KC. 2018 came to KC, departed for New England. 2019 came to KC, stayed. 20 came to KC, stayed. 21 came to KC, departed for Cincinnati. 22 came to Buffalo, departed for KC. 23 came to K or 20. No, I'm sorry. 22 came to KC, stayed. 23 departed for Buffalo, came back. 24 came to KC and stayed, and now it will go to Denver and either stay or depart back to New England.
Yeah, just end of a run there. I do think the Chiefs will be back, but definitely end of a run.
Yes, but like
That
you
is
said,
all we.
I hope everyone enjoys watching AFC Championship and NFC Championship.
Of course, tune in next week. Make sure you're subscribed. Don't miss any off-season content, and we'll see you next week.
Appreciate you guys.